Wait, that's happened? Britain used drugs to pay for tea. History is full of shocking history facts and unbelievable true stories, but few are as strange and devastating as the time Britain used drugs to pay for tea. It sounds crazy, but this was a true historical event that reshaped the balance of global power. In the 1800s, Britain had a problem, a tea problem. By that time, tea wasn't just a drink in Britain, it was practically a national fuel. The British population consumed it in staggering quantities, pouring hot cups from morning to night. But there was a catch. All that tea came from China, and China demanded payment in silver. Britain had little China wanted to buy, so silver flowed east in vast amounts. The British economy was bleeding wealth into teapots. And then someone had an idea that would reshape global history in one of its most shocking and destructive ways. If Britain couldn't balance the trade by selling something China wanted, perhaps it could sell something China didn't want, but couldn't resist: opium. Opium was already grown in British-controlled India. By flooding China with this highly addictive drug, Britain could reverse the trade deficit. At first, the scheme was a trickle. Smugglers moved the drug into southern China, where demand quietly grew. But soon, the trickle became a torrent. By the early 19th century, millions of Chinese were addicted, and the profits rolling back to Britain were enormous. The balance of trade flipped. Instead of silver leaving Britain for tea, silver now poured out of China to pay for opium. The human cost, however, was staggering. Addiction spread across every class of Chinese society, from peasants to scholars to officials. Families fell apart, productivity collapsed, and entire regions sank into despair. China's rulers, the Qing dynasty, were horrified. This was not just a public health disaster, it was a direct assault on their sovereignty. In 1839, the emperor appointed a high-ranking official, Lin Zexu, to end the crisis. Lin took decisive action. He arrested dealers, confiscated opium, and even wrote an extraordinary letter to Queen Victoria, appealing to her morality and asking why Britain would poison another nation for profit. But Britain wasn't interested in morality, it was interested in trade. When Lin destroyed more than 20,000 chests of opium at Canton, dumping them into the sea in a dramatic public display, Britain responded not with negotiation, but with warships. Thus began the First Opium War in 1839. It was a profoundly uneven fight. Britain's navy, powered by steamships and modern artillery, cut through China's wooden junks with ease. Coastal forts fell, cities were bombarded, and Chinese resistance, though fierce, could not withstand the industrial might of Britain. The war ended in 1842 with the Treaty of Nanking, a treaty so lopsided that it would become infamous as the first of the unequal treaties. China was forced to open ports to British merchants, pay a massive indemnity, and, most famously, cede the island of Hong Kong to Britain. The humiliation was profound. The war had not been about defense or honor or national survival. It had been about forcing a sovereign nation to accept a drug trade that was tearing its people apart. But the story didn't end there. A second opium war broke out in the 1850s, again ending in defeat for China and further concessions to Britain and other Western powers. By the end of these conflicts, China's centuries-old dominance in Asia had shattered, replaced by what historians call the Century of Humiliation. Foreign powers carved spheres of influence, demanded trade rights, and treated China as a weak state to be exploited. Looking back, it's astonishing to realize that this seismic shift in world history, all the wars, the treaties, the collapse of dynasties, and the redrawing of global power, was triggered in large part by tea and opium. Britain's insatiable thirst for one drink and its ruthless willingness to poison another nation to pay for it helped set in motion the modern age of imperialism. Today, when we sip a cup of tea, it's hard to imagine that behind the comforting ritual lies a story of addiction, gunboats, and empire. The Opium Wars remain one of the most unsettling reminders that the trade routes of history were not just paved with goods, but with suffering, and all because Britain couldn't get enough tea. If you enjoyed this strange piece of history, give it a like and don't forget to subscribe for more.